And I looked out on the football field and I went to the head coach and I was like, you need to let me play because I could do better than some of these guys. And he looked at me and he goes, Miss Welter, I have no doubt that you could play on this football team. You're a heck of an athlete. He said, but I'm going to ask you not to do it. And here's why. I'm a football guy. I've been a football guy my whole life. And here's what's going to happen. You're an athlete. You will go out there and make one of these guys look bad. One of his teammates will cheap shot you. I will kill him and go to jail. Miss Welter, please don't play football.
All right, y'all. Thank you for jumping on another episode of Fully Loaded. I got Cris Carter, but more importantly, definitely more importantly today, I have Jen Welter. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You got it.
Okay. So Jen's now listen, this has not been a mecca of academia on the podcast, but she's the smartest person we've had. Let me give you a little bit of background because I'm 100% sure you're the only PhD we've had. I know that. You might be one of the fewer college, but only PhD. So you were head coach of Australia's first women's national team.
Correct.
The first female coach in the NFL?
Correct.
Okay, with the Arizona Cardinals in 15. 14-year career in women's professional football. You won 4 world championships.
Yes.
All right. 2 gold medals as a member of Team USA. 8-time All-Star. Inducted in Women's Football Hall of Fame in 18. You authored Play Big, Lessons in Being Limitless from the first woman coach in the NFL. Let's see. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Oh, I like this. You graduated from BC.
Yep.
Master in sports psychology and a PhD in psychology from Capella University.
Yep.
All right. Got all kinds of stuff. All kinds of people said about you, how amazing you are. And that's great. You might be, you might not be the best. You might be one of the best athletes we've ever had too. I'm just saying. You're very
also might be the shortest.
How tall are you?
5'2".
You the shortest.
Yep. Yeah. I might be the shortest. So I'll claim that too.
You the shortest. That's okay.
You know?
So well, first of all, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I mean it. It's really, I was listening. I was across the hall listening to you and Cris just go through all kinds of stuff. You were talking about dragging the foot, and I was like, I'm not walking in there yet because I'm talking about all kinds of football stuff. I don't even know what. How I just hit it. It moves. I hit it, and there's way too much going on here. So I want to start with something. I'm gonna let you, Cris. I'll have a ton of questions for you, but I want to ask you something. My degree is in psychology. A master's grad. Did not get a PhD. But I wanted to know, growing up, I had a guy tell me one day, because I'm 52.
Yep.
So I've never had, we actually, weirdly enough, people would say to me, who's the best player to ever come from your area? And I have a lot of dudes that play in the NFL. Yep. But there's a lady who I'm telling you is probably 10 years younger than me, who I was like, that was one of the best football players. And back then, that was like,
right.
It was really hard for her to get moving. How did you find the game, like the game of football growing up? Like what? Because I'm just really ridiculously curious.
So I think I found it in the same way a lot of guys did. I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, where the biggest thing in the town is football, right? Yep. It is Friday Night Lights. Everything shuts down. And the biggest structure there is the football stadium. And I remember being in that stadium as a little kid and thinking they were the brightest lights. This was the biggest place. This was the biggest thing. And when I looked out on the field and saw the guys in the pads and the helmet and heard the hits, right? There's no sound like football pads popping. I thought I was watching real life superheroes. And I said, I want to be a superhero too. And it was the first place in the world someone looked at me and said, girls don't do that. Because I have a military dad, right? Like my dad is a legit war hero. Yeah. He is Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, recon medic. Like there was never anything that I couldn't do because I was a girl. You either did it or you didn't. And if you didn't do it right, you worked to do it better. And when somebody made this hard line of like, girls don't do that, it wasn't like it crushed me as a little girl. And I wasn't like, I'm going to break every boundary. I was like, that doesn't really make sense. Mm-hmm. And I played lots of sports and always.
How old were you at this time when you're talking about this?
God, before I even remember. Like
really?
It's one of my early, I mean, I was probably like the little girl in Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like that was
next
legit
to her dad
me,
walking around.
Right. What are you doing? What do you mean you can't do this? Right. Like, and So I always kind of looked at it, and I played lots of sports, was always an athlete, but I would watch football. And the first time I got really serious on realizing I could do it is when I went to Sebastian River High School, and we were in new high school. So it meant we had no senior class, and most of the good football players stayed at Vero. And I looked out on the football field, and I went to the head coach, and I was like, you need to let me play, because I could do better than some of these guys. Randy Bethel, he was with the New England Patriots for a cup of coffee, but Miami played undergrad with a lot of the guys we know. And he looked at me and he goes, Miss Welter, I have no doubt that you could play on this football team. You're a heck of an athlete. He said, but I'm going to ask you not to do it. And here's why. I'm a football guy. I've been a football guy my whole life. And here's what's going to happen. You're an athlete. You will go out there and make one of these guys look bad. One of his teammates will cheap shot you. I will kill him and go to jail. Miss Welter, please don't play football. And I kind of remember being like, I respect it, right? It wasn't like, it wasn't a girls can't do it, you can't do it. I was like,
he didn't want to commit homicide.
Right. He did not want to commit homicide, and I respected that. So I went to college, found rugby, played rugby all 4 years at BC.
Okay.
Went out for the U.S. national team. At that point, I think they realized I was 5'2", did not make it, and then started playing flag football. And a team called the general manager from a team called the Mass Mutiny, which present day is the Boston Renegades, called and asked if they had any players who were playing flag that they thought could play tackle. Now, full disclosure, guys, I'd never stopped tackling. So they were probably really glad to get rid of me. They're like, yeah, take this one. And the cool thing is, when I was going to go for this football team and try out, I called Coach Bethel. And I said, Coach, I've got an opportunity to try out for a football team. And he said, Welter, come home and work out with these boys. And so he let me train with the Sebastian River High football players to get ready for this tryout. And I can tell y'all I did make it that day. So it's football has been the love of my life for so many of us, right? I lovingly say, like, richer, poorer, especially playing as a woman, definitely more on the poorer. But at times it's only death can pull us apart. So it was that sport for me, like the boys.
So when you played rugby, but you played football growing up, like recreation.
I was not allowed to play football.
No pads, no nothing. No.
First time I got to play football. Well, first time I got to hit. Was
but in a game,
probably in soccer. I was the one who got in trouble all the time. You're not supposed to do that. And I wore number 13 to let them all know that they were not supposed to come my way. But the first time I got to really tackle was college rugby, and then I went directly from there, basically directly to playing women's tackle football.
Wow. Quick question.
Yeah, I like quick questions.
NFL. When did that become? I played. I love the game. I got no doubt about it. If you pick the ball up right now at 5'2", and I get my old ass out of the couch, I still think you'd probably run me over. That's no problem. Like, I'm not confused.
No, I was a linebacker, so hips wrap and drop, cheeks cheek,
then I'd
no
be
problem.
Up, bound, busted up.
Yep.
When did you decide that was, because it seems like no matter what you decide you're going to do it, you seem pretty damn motivated. I'm motivated over here. Like, you're like naturally motivated, right? Right now, you're like no cocaine, no nothing, just natural.
It's natural.
Shit. Did you ever do cocaine?
No, I'm scared to.
You shouldn't.
I think it would be a bad thing.
No, it'd be bad for everybody.
Either that or it would just put me to sleep.
It wouldn't put you to sleep. No, you'd be tackling everybody. So when did you realize that was a real goal of yours? And because at that point in time, nobody had ever done. Because I know it's easy to say, my dad and I was raised this way, but you did something that nobody ever, that was a female.
Yeah.
And I get this, men, women, we can all do it, but you did something amazing. When did you realize that was a legitimate goal for you?
Never.
Okay.
And I'll be really honest and really humble. Like, first of all, the funniest thing is, like, the reason or the way that I got into coaching was I played against the guys first. So, when Kurt Warner played in the indoor football league, I also played in the indoor football league. I don't know if you guys know.
You played in it.
I played against the guys. I played against the guys for not a minute. And I am a non-kicker. So if I'm going in as a kicker, it's an unintentional onside. Like, we have big problems if I'm kicking. But I would tell you, when I show up to the games, they'd be like, oh, so you're the kicker. And the guys would be like, the kicker. Right. But I played against them for a whole year. And it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. Didn't set out to do it. The team called the Texas Revolution, which another one of your buddies, Cris, you can call him now, Timmy Brown. Tim Brown, also Hall of Famer, was the general manager of the Texas Revolution. And they gave me a shot. Now, the president of the team at that time really wanted me to go through a day of training camp with the guys and get them some pub. I'm not going to lie. And I called BS. I was like, listen, like I won my second gold medal as a woman, right? Like, and it's an insult to say I'm just going to go through a day of training camp, like with no stakes, with no real there. And if I was any one of the guys in your team, I would absolutely hate it. If I'm going to do anything with your team, I'm either going to go do everything that the guys do, step for step, hit for hit, or I'm doing nothing at all. And the second the words came out of my mouth, I knew two things. I had just shifted the course of my destiny. I was going to play football against them. And I also might have gotten myself killed, right? Like there was no delusion of grandeur. Like there was no like, yeah, I'm going to run these guys over. Like as soon as I said it, I was like, this could get ugly. But those guys taught me so much about, and I remember it was Clinton Solomon, who's a former NFL wide receiver, played 3 years, majority with the Bears. And Solo said, it can't be you versus us. You got to be a part of our locker room. And it has to be us versus the world. And as a woman in the game, I was among the best, right? I played on, 2 U.S. national teams. We won 2 gold medals. We were those women. Going into the guys, I was not. Right? Like I'm scratching and clawing and fighting to not get cut or killed on a daily basis. And I had to figure out how to be that teammate, which is different than the one at the top of the rung, right? The one at the bottom of the rung that's a great teammate is different. And I'd be on practice squad some games. And, indoor football is notoriously undercoached. It's not like the NFL where you have a coach for everything plus an assistant to every coach. And I'd literally be like, hey, okay, this time, your angle was real tight. If they were looking up from the box, the naked boot to the backside is going to catch you. So take a better angle next time. And they would joke and they're like, she's like our little coach on the sidelines. I'm like, yeah, and I get to take all of this and put it in your body and I'm not getting hurt. Right. So they would joke and say like, she's like a little coach, which I did naturally, but had never thought was even a possibility because girls didn't do that. And thankfully it was Wendell Davis, former Dallas Cowboy, who came in as the head coach the following season, saw how the guys responded to me. And the next day said, you have to coach this football team. And it was him that did it. And I turned it down. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Girls don't coach football. And he said, not a lot of guys are going to give you this opportunity. You're taking this job. So I never had this big vision of the NFL. The NFL was larger than life. And the closest I'd ever been was literally the nosebleed section. If somebody ended up with an extra ticket or, we girls could sneak in, but it was never like I had this big dream. That was too far away.
Wow. What do you got, Cris?
Question for you.
Yeah.
What are the limitations? Because you get into certain jobs, say like a police officer, and women have physical limitations. What are some of the limitations that physically set women and men apart, playing football in particular?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that you're saying in there, right? Like if it's women versus women, I don't think that necessarily comes into play to the same degree. I mean, you could say hip height and ACL injuries and some of those, like we've seen it. But when women are playing against women, it's that same type of separation that you have in the men's game, right? Like, you got some guys who couldn't play some positions, and that's the beauty of football, right? Is that there is a position for every body type. When you go with women against men,
there's a position for every body type of man.
There is for women too. Sure.
Well,
not playing against men necessarily.
I would beg to differ on that because, I mean, I'm concerned about the especially being able to protect your chest area.
They make pads for that. I mean, yeah, like, look, that's not a problem that I really had. Like, I could wear the guys' ones. Like, But hey, look, I loved it. Hold on. I loved it when this is gonna get real football specific, but you'll appreciate it, Cris. I used to love it when some of the bigger girls would play, because if they wore the guys' pads, they would kind of come out like this, and I could get up under there and use it as a shelf, and I could get you on your toes and drive you to Kingdom Come, right?
Yep.
There was literally a place that I could get because it was sitting out like this. I don't have to worry about that. That was not a problem I had. But there is also a company named Xena, or Douglas makes a Xena pad that actually has, chest sizes similar to like a cup size. So it would come up and out. And that was an adaptation.
Now tell me, because there's a lot of ugly parts in football. And one of the reasons why I was able to be effective, because the ugly part, the watching film, the lifting weights, the working out, watching what I was eating, all those things I loved to do because I knew they were a benefit. What parts of football and the ugly parts did you love?
Gosh, I love most of them. I would say probably what everybody does in the locker room most of all, right? Like that's where you find people that'll be with you for the rest of your life. I had to actually, women's football, the reality is different. Like for me, my life for a long time was work by day, play football by night, and go to school by very late night, because I got my PhD while I was playing football. But my undergrad degree was in business. My business job did not like me playing football. So I very politically correctly told them where they could take that job and where they could hide it. And then went back. I had been teaching aerobics since I was 18. So went back, got certified to personal train, and did that throughout my career because I could adapt my schedule and work out and do the things that I needed to do to be one of the best in the world, where I wasn't getting paid to do that stuff. Right. So I think for me, you as guys who grew up in the system and you got high school to college and to pro, the level of detail just gets more refined. It's the same work, but the amount of time you can put into it, and the film study and the lifting weights and the specificity and the shortness of the off season, those things just get more and more intense. For us as women, we didn't get the opportunity to have football be our life, right? Like we had to make conscious decisions to dedicate extra time to the ugly part. So the training part was easy for me. I mean, I made it my job so I could find a way to get paid to do everything that I needed to do to be great. I wish I had more film study. I think the hardest thing for women at time was because you had women at so many different levels, right? The length that I played is that coaches were strained and they didn't have the time to build into everybody the same. They'd be like, oh, well, she's good enough, right? Welter's got this. She's good enough. And they might not only realize how good I was when they had to put somebody else in, because it was a lockdown position for a really long time. But I think all the time of how good would I have been if I'd have had the opportunity to get hard coached, right? To get coached as hard as the person who was just coming in, and to do that. So I fell in love with like the ugly of football. It was like, but I also wasn't really trained with the systems that you guys got so fluidly. Then it'd be like, even, you'll appreciate this. Like we had simpler playbooks because we didn't have the time to put it in. So we on the field had to adjust, like, hey, we're going to split the difference. We're going to bump. We're going to do this. But we'd have to know to talk about it and make that decision on the field, because we may only have one coverage. But we may look, we'd be like, oh, no, you're not leaving Cris Carter out there by himself. Or you want a linebacker matched up on him? That's not right? Like, he's in the slot right now. You switch with me. Right. So we had to do a lot of that stuff. And then, or you might naturally bracket somebody because, hey, I'm going to jam it, but he's going to get off that. So you better be ready to pick him up when he breaks free. We didn't always know we didn't know that there were terms for that. We just had to be gritty and figure it out. Right. So then I'd go into like, we'd be somewhere and they'd be like, hey, you're going to do this. And I'm like, what is that? And they'd say it. And I'm like, oh, okay. We had our own words, right? We just made it up. So I think that was and is still a love of mine, right, is getting to learn other things. Like if you ask any of the folks that we have in common, Cris, they'd be like, oh yeah, the first thing she did was ask me such and such about football, right? I'd be like, oh, that was so smart that you did that. Or why did you do this? Or teach me one thing that you used to read off somebody on offense that was a key of yours. Because I still feel like a little kid sometimes when it comes to the ugly of football, but I didn't have the opportunity or the longevity of that big a percentage of my life being dedicated to what I knew was what I was meant to do in my life.
Yeah. All right. So I got a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go, Cris.
What is the next hurdle for women in football? What's the next major achievement that we can see coming out of the next generation of women like yourself?
So there's a bunch of them. I think you'll see, the direction or the state of girls and women in football right now is very heavily in the flag space. That's where the opportunity is, right? For the first time, we're going into year 5 now where girls could get a college scholarship to have the opportunity to play flag football. So they can, like so many guys, change their trajectory of their life through football.
How many flag football teams are there out there? Scholarship-wise?
Scholarship-wise, it's mostly NAIA right now. Okay. I don't know what the exact number is.
Got it.
There's also NJCAA. Okay. Alabama State University was the first D1 HBCU to make it a scholarship sport. So we're right in that early opportunities that girls can grow up and see a future, right? In 2028, we'll have the first men's and women's U.S. national flag team, right? When I played in 2010 on the very first women's U.S. national team period, the promise that we made is that it would become an Olympic sport. Like that's what we were all playing the game forward to. So you'll see Olympics. You'll see a model where it's no longer pay to play, right? Like I had to pay to play my way through for 15 years. I had to pay to play to represent the United States of America in America's game, right? Like there's a different level there. So finding ways to continue to give women the opportunity to train and play with the same or similar resources to the guys is where you'll continue to see women level up. We have not yet seen a full position coach in the NFL. I was a linebackers coach in the XFL, which was also something we hadn't seen before, right? So that'll be the next hurdle. And to continue to see some of those women who have had opportunities to continue to grow, right? And I think if I could change anything for myself, and I hope that the women coming up now have that I didn't, was like that consistent mentorship in growing your coaching career, right? Like, and I think you're starting to see it now that it leveled out. But, when we see those women, continue to break through and, have your own room in for an NFL team, like that's a big one. So I think there's a lot of barriers to break through and to find ways that, we can get paid to play the game we love.
Got it. So I'm going to put your degree.
Okay. I like the
I'm
degree.
going to test it. Because no, it's not a compliment.
I like a good test.
Every week, I think I won't hear something dumber than I heard the week before. Then people continue to impress me with the stupid things they say. Okay. So I'm gonna read this. I want your comment because I think that someday somebody's going to write a lot about what the Cowboys have been able to do with a poor product on the field, but such an unbelievable, financially, obnoxiously EBITDA net income, the whole deal. So, and Joe Buck said the other day, he said he wishes the Cowboys could play Monday Night Football every week. I wish they would never play Monday Night Football because they suck. He actually said they have the biggest star in the NFL, Jerry Jones. Which I'm like, he said the people in Dallas are great. And we've had people on the show and people have talked about how Chris talked about playing in Philly. All kinds of guys talk about playing where the fans, I was in Atlanta recently and I need your psychology degree. And the Cowboys are playing the Falcons and they can't beat the Falcons because the Cowboys suck. Okay. But you know what the Cowboys fans are not doing? Place is packed. There's more than 50% Cowboys fans.
Mhm.
They're not booing. They're not mad. They don't, give a shit. Why is this tribe of people, this cult, I get America's team, I get the marketing in the past, I'm a business guy. How every time I turn on TV on and see they've sold out and see everybody wearing their jerseys and their product in the field's awful, is that ever going to stop? Is this just going to be, are we going to be enamored with the Cowboys forever even if they never win a playoff game ever again or ever win an NFC championship or God forbid go to the Super Bowl?
So, I think fandom is a really fascinating space. It's why are fans so vested? Because they get to leave their life for a little bit and they put on a jersey and they get to be happy or sad. They get to leave their world and live through the ups, the downs, the highs and lows of those teams. One of the things that the Cowboys and Jerry has done very well is he continues to bridge with the legacy. You see those guys every Sunday there. And Cris will tell you this. There are certain teams that get players there week in and week out because there's a legacy mentality, right? You still talk about Minnesota Purple People Eaters, like the icons. Minnesota does a great job with that. Jerry does a really good job of continuing to balance what is today's star, but balance the love on the lasting legacy. Most Cowboys fans have been Cowboys fans, right?
Correct.
And they're doing that with the legacy. So I think it's a beauty of what they have there in Dallas, and it's reflective of culture. The Steelers also have that kind of fandom, right? And they also have a history of, loving on their people and keeping things continuous as long as possible, right? Ultimately, what a team wants is fans that will ride with you through the highs and lows. Now, would I like to see the Cowboys win? I played most of my career in Dallas. A lot of my mentors are the guys who have always believed in me. Ed Too Tall Jones, Emmitt Smith, Drew Pearson, like those guys. Cubby, Everson Walls. I saw a catch of you had on Cubby the other day where he looked inside, Cris, kind of ugly. And I know Cubby well, but like those guys all came to my games. But the love I have for the Cowboys is those guys.
So you're telling me, because that's
lot of
that's
legacy
very
love.
interesting. I told you she was the smartest person we've had on here. That was very interesting with the legacy.
Yep.
Because to manipulate or manage the legacy of the people that you loved because they were winning when them dudes were there. And it's like you listen to Troy Aikman talking and doing a game, and you're like, that's the Cowboys, the people. But so the highs and lows they're riding, there's not a lot of high. I mean, it's a lot of lows, right? And this last thing I'll ask this because it is really, I almost want to say something stupid, but I'm not going to. So I'm thinking like, you're like, people leave their fandom, they leave their lives. And yeah, but at some point in time, the product you're cheering for has to be concerned about your highs as well. Like if I'm going to pay all this money to go there, I expect y'all to try to win. Like, and Cris knows, we talk about the same thing in college athletics. Bro, I'm in until you all better win. And not overnight, but we better be moving to where we can win.
Absolutely.
But it's like they don't book. But that's your trick. It's because it's trick. It's like witchcraft.
And wait, I'm about to drop some knowledge on y'all.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So my dissertation was on the NFL's use of the Wonderlic in player selection.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And what I learned in that is, do you know how the Wonderlic got to be so popular or got to permeate the NFL? Anybody know?
I don't know.
No.
Okay. So arguably, it is very true that you have to be very smart, football smart, to be great in football. The Wonderlic doesn't capture that, but let's be objective. But you have to be very smart to be a great football player. We go back to Paul Brown. Paul Brown was the first one to really instigate, like, I want players to learn after they leave the field. So he wanted smart players, whether or not he used the Wonderlic. Some people say he did, some people didn't, but he was kind of the grandfather of the playbook, right? I want players to study outside what we can do in practice. Then you get a guy who comes around, Tom Landry. And they start really putting analytics to football, right? Measuring what teams do on what down and distance, looking at how you could statistically predict someone's success as a player, and putting different metrics back then, early in the 70s, to players. Well, they had success from that, right? So they were actually named, because of that success, America's computer team. We later dropped the computer part and made it America's team, but it was their analytics that really kind of moved them forward. And then what happened is, we hear it week in and week out. The NFL is what? It's a copycat league. So at the time of their dominance, one of the things that the Cowboys were doing was using the Wonderlic test. Now everybody said, well, Cowboys are smart. We like what Cowboys are doing. We're going to start doing what the Cowboys are doing. And so that was one of the things that other teams started rolling with when the combine was basically formalized 1982. It was just grandfathered in. And everybody said, we're going to do it because Cowboys did it. Now we're all doing it. Now it's the one psychological test that is standard across the NFL combine. But America's team came from America's computer team.
Ain't nobody copying the Cowboys anymore. Tell you that. That's all. No. I know that about football. One other question before I pass over to Cris. I want your opinion on this. I don't root against any player. That's weird. Okay. I root against teams I don't bet on. But I don't want to see anybody necessarily do bad. I really don't. I don't know any of these folks. I don't. I really don't. But I'm not upset when Aaron Rodgers does bad. Okay? I don't root against him, but I'm definitely not upset when they don't do bad. And I thought the same thing last week. Cris and I talked about, I call him Pastor Cris. When he gets excited, Pastor Cris, he gets up, he gets the pulpit, and he starts, and he gives me the whole thing. So Aaron Rodgers said, I want you as a football player, coach. He said, they asked him about the last 5-6 games, whatever we got here. And he said, man, listen, let me be clear. I don't have to audition for anything. I'm Aaron Rodgers. I have a resume. And if the Jets are going to use these last 5 or 6 games to decide if they want to keep me, like, they can keep me or ship me, like, I'm good either way. And what is your thought on hearing that? And if you were the Jets, what would you be looking to do? Because he's not playing well. What would your thoughts be on, what would you do if you were the Jets? What are your thoughts on those statements he made?
But I think, for anyone who's played, like, I get that you have a resume. Anybody who's played has a resume. But Cris has a resume. He's still got to audition, though, and he knew it every year. I heard something you said I was the best receiver for the Minnesota Vikings this year, and next year I gotta go in like I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole, right? Like, champions know that you are the best until someone catches you. And someone figures you out, or someone else does X. So I think what matters in that is work ethic is contagious. Greatness is contagious. That dog steps on the field and you just walk just the aura brings other people, like, brings the real out of the real and makes the really fake ones kind of go to the side. Right. And so if you're not showing up in a way that everybody says, like, look, I'll tell you how I was. I'm going 100, 100, 100 on every play. You know why? Because I'm 5'2". So I can't go half speed. Somebody at 5'10" is going to dog me every time. I used to have people yell at me. I'm like, guess what? You deserve my best, because anything else is an insult, because you can't handle it. And if I'm not giving you that on every rep, like, you're a great receiver. If I'm just letting you run like you have no coverage, I'm doing you no favors. So what I need, or what I'd love to hear from the leader of a franchise, whether I'm a coach, a GM, a scout, an owner, or that, 53rd person on the roster, is I want to hear that this matters, that the last drive is as important as the first drive, that one touchdown that we can put on the board just because of freaking pride, that we're going to chase it. You know what? Like, certain quarterbacks, you knew that the game was never over, right? And that meant that the next week, that hunger to figure out that one thing that was the difference between winning and losing is driving you. So I mean, I still like, I think of it as like I'm auditioning every time I step on the field. I know people are looking at me. And when you are one of the greats, I want you to have the same hunger that you had before you had a resume. And if I'm going to build a franchise around you, I want somebody who instills that in everybody and is making everybody around him better.
I'll tell you what, ain't nobody at the Jets talking to Aaron Rodgers like that right there. I can guarantee you that. There's zero chance somebody's spoken to him that way.
But like, that's what I want to hear. I want to, and I'm a big one-on-one person. Like, this isn't a conversation I would have in a full locker room. But if it's me, right? And, you know, I've had a degree in sports psychology longer than they let me, you know, coach football. I'm going to go to him and I'm going to say, you know what? I know how good you can be. But I want you to teach everyone else around you how to be that person. I want you in this locker room to be what Cris Carter was to Randy Moss. I want you to realize that your legacy extends beyond what you do and every play that you make. That's the guy I want.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
If somebody had that conversation with him, how do you think he would take it? We're hypothesizing. This intrigues me though.
I don't know, Aaron. God. And I think it's hard because I think my intuition, Cris, you probably know him and wouldn't, is what I would hope is that answer is his way of self-protecting and making it not so hard if they decide to go another direction the next year, right? Because let's think about everyone you know who has gone through a bad breakup, right? And your heart's a little broken. That next relationship, you don't jump in. You kind of put a toe in the water first, because if team's going to break up with you, right? Or a person's going to break up with you, you kind of toe in the water first so that if you get cut or if it doesn't work out, you say, well, it didn't matter anyway, right? Like, but to truly play a game that is a gladiator game, right? Which life can be, which football is, you have to fully fall in love. Like, you have to fully commit, because we said it earlier, Cris, there are ugly parts of football. Like, people think it's sexy. Those film breakdown sessions, not sexy. You are literally watching film of watching film when you watch a walkthrough, right? Like, it is not sexy. You have to be in love to be great. You can't just kind of halfway show up. That's when you see guys that you thought were great all of a sudden not. So what I would hope is that that's Aaron's way of just saying, well, you know, I'm good either way. Look what I've done. But I would hope that he doesn't mean it to come off the way that it does. Because if I'm a young person in the locker room, I'm saying he's already checked out on us. And that's hard to
Would you bring him back if you were Jets GM?
I would talk to him first.
Okay.
But from a
football standpoint,
right.
if his mind was right from the way he can perform right now because of how many quarterbacks there are not,
right.
And I thought you'd bring him back.
But I would also look at him as like, hey, you are one of the best to have ever done it.
Amen.
And let's say that
he could have been so much better.
Huh?
I said to me, all these conversations are conversations people have had, and they're all part of coddling him. Like, Aaron Rodgers has never been a great leader. Aaron Rodgers tells you, I am not here to mentor any other young players. The same thing Brett Favre said about him. So you are what you say, and you are what you do. And Aaron Rodgers, when he said that, he doesn't think that he has to update his resume every day. He don't think that way.
Well, then what would be hard.
That's That's sad.
Right.
But I mean, any other organization too in the world, I don't care where you're at. Nobody says, hey, I ain't doing my job today. I did it in the past.
Right. I'm just gonna tell you guys that being in the NFL locker room 16 years, everyone does not come to work and feel that way.
No.
And you would be shocked. People being paid millions of dollars, they don't have a burning desire to be great every day. Sometimes they just get through. So regardless of what y'all talking about, every single day I see guys on the 53-man roster that they are just trying to get by or do the minimum so that they get through.
I absolutely agree. And I've been there, right? Not 16 years and yours, but that's, football in general. But we're talking about, like, there's a difference between the portion of the locker room that's just getting through and elite.
No, there are elite players. There are guys wearing gold jackets that do not play on an elite level every single day. God has blessed them with Hall of Fame ability, and they are not great practice players. I am not going to allow you to tell that because that's not true.
But
no, that's true.
Let me ask you something. Did those guys, because when Aaron Rodgers says what he says, were those guys smart enough to not say what he said to the world, or they did that too? And I just...
Well, I think with now you have more access, guys have opportunities to screw themselves over. But you guys think Lawrence Taylor was a great practice player?
No, but I take him in any game, anywhere, anytime. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just trying to kill the theory that guys show up every day and it's I'm giving you 100% every day.
No, I don't think I don't think that at all. Just like I said, I just think as a quarterback and as a leader. But Chris, you hit it well when you're like, bro, he ain't a leader. Like he ain't a leader. So stop looking for him to be a leader.
Well, here's what I meant by that, Chris, is like for me, I wasn't just blessed with, the height, the this, the that, right? Like I had to be a worker, right? Like to be great at 5'2", I mean, I was so small on the U.S. national team, they called me kid. I didn't have the luxury of just being able to show up or just turn it on for games. We all know those people who are super gifted, but to what your question was on Aaron Rodgers, that's why I said you know him better. I don't. So it's hard for me to say based on one statement that that's either who he is or isn't. But a lot of the times people check out and will do it so that if they see the writing on the wall, it's not surprising because they already said, well, that's a decision they made and I kind of saw it coming.
Yeah. And I think the younger Aaron Rodgers did things like this. People swept it under the rug and act as if he didn't. So people see what they want to see. And just like I told a kid today, a college football player, I don't give people credit for hard work. That's like you're a construction worker and your boss comes and you tell him, hey, boss, guess what? I got my construction hat on today. Make sure I don't get killed out here. So, to me, I don't give nobody credit. Oh, he's a hard worker. That's the basic ingredients to making a damn cake. Oh, he works hard. Working hard will get you a seat at the table. It won't get you demanding things at the table because most people work hard. And you're not going to continue to exceed and think you're just going to keep getting over and over. But when you get to the highest levels, to think that everyone is out there maxed out, no, that is not the case. That's not the case. And I never give people credit for bringing basic essentials. Like you're going to a meeting. Did you bring pen? Did you bring paper? You want me to give you credit for that? Hell no. No, that ain't how this works.
Hey, who's going to be the next coach of the Jets?
I think they should go for Belichick.
You do?
Yeah, it's the one part of the ring, the circle that he hasn't finished. Go there, become the winningest coach all time, get the Jets back into the playoffs. Yes, the stability. Yeah, I would do that because I've been thoroughly impressed. I feel like I know Bill Belichick better than most of the public because I know a lot of the players and a lot of the coaches that have played for him and coached with him. But the things that he has said, the way he's conducted the media part, the way he's made himself more friendly. I mean, goodness gracious, you got a 22-year-old girlfriend. Goodness gracious, Bill. Hello,
Here we
Bill.
Hey, that's his favorite part of Bill Belichick right there.
Oh, boy.
Man, sneak it out in the morning. That's my guy. Hello. Let's go, coach. I ate that shit up. That was amazing to me.
That's when we fell back in love with Bill Belichick.
Wait, but I like this train of thinking on Jets. So Chris, you have just been given the hat. You're now the Jets GM. You're gonna hire Bill Belichick. Are you keeping Aaron Rodgers?
Hell no.
No.
In fact,
Even I know that.
Bill second. I'm going to my man the coordinator for Detroit, Ben. Oh my goodness, how can I forget his name? The offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. They play tonight. Bruh.
Holmes?
No, he's the general manager.
He's over here trying to Google it quick, bro. I don't know. Go ahead.
I can't think of it, but that's who would be the first candidate. He's the first candidate in Chicago for Eberflus's job because it would weaken Detroit. But if I'm given charge to get a coach in New York, I'm going for the offensive coordinator. I can't think of his name right now. It's killing me. But
Johnson.
His ability to call plays and run. I mean, the plays they run are one of a kind around the league. That's what I would be doing.
But who are you bringing in for quarterback then?
I might have to draft one. I'm not in love with the quarterbacks that are out there. I'm going to have a high draft pick. I might have to spend that on the quarterback, but it's not getting ready to be Aaron Rodgers, man. I'm telling Aaron Rodgers, man, hey, man, here's all the mushrooms, all kind of stuff you want to do. Get high this offseason. Enjoy yourself. You're done being a Jet, buddy. Just like we got rid of Brett Favre at the end. No, you want to play somewhere else, it won't be in Gang Green.
All right, one more question. We got to go. I want you both to answer it, please. So I was watching the game live when Trevor Lawrence got hit by Aziz and his 3-game suspension, and everybody freaked out. They had a fight, and he went crazy. And I was asking another guy, playing the league for years, and I said, "What do you think about?" Because I watched it real time, and I thought, like, all right, he was sliding, he got near him, it didn't lower like the crown of his head. He hit him with his hand, and Trevor's hurt. What was obviously? Did it warrant a 3-game suspension? Was it that dirty of a play?
Yeah, you can't hit a guy like that, man. And just because you were only driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, but I look back at your track record and you went through a school zone, you almost hit a kid before, and you also had several other illegal hits. You also punched people on the field. So he's earned this. Like, he has earned this. It's not just for that play. It's because of the reckless plays that have led to this. So, to me, I fully support a 3-game suspension. When you go after a quarterback's head, when he is trying to slide, and it was obvious, there was no trickery or anything. And when you go after the head or neck area, which they have tried to eliminate and made the game a lot more safer, and especially when you've been in violation before, this is what you're going to get.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, slides are tricky when you're committed to the tackle, but you have to make the effort to avoid, right? He followed through, and I think it's also, like Cris said, it's more of the previous actions. If you've never seen the guy do it before and it kind of comes off and you see that, I think the biggest thing is you really see that the defender made efforts to avoid, right? Not just lean in and just continue and say, oh, well, like, I'm just going to take it. And if for the game to continue, you don't have a lot of quarterbacks. Yeah. So if they're going to make an error, it's going to be on the side of protecting quarterbacks, because ultimately that protects the quality of the game overall.
And even after
that's the only thing the players respect. They don't respect fines. The only thing is and this is from Nick Saban. When I take away their playing time, that's the only thing that gets their undivided attention.
Well, he got 3 games off now, and even after he did it, he was one going crazy. Everybody, you want to fight everybody in the world. So I guess that was a further indictment. But all right, listen, we got that. That's our time. You have to come back. You said you'd do it in person.
Absolutely. So when Cris is in person.
When Cris is not at a golf tournament, and that golf pro get too many phone calls. That's all that phone rings all day long. Tell me to turn that damn phone off, Cris. So,
hey, man, Cris Carter,
hey, thank you for joining us on Fully Loaded. We appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share. Jen, appreciate you. You're unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. See y'all.
Thank you, bro.